Well, hello, we're live. I know the camera's not perfect and the sound is not that great, but we'll do the best we can, okay? The important thing is that the message gets across. And it's going to be story time tonight. We're going to tell and what I think is a very interesting story. I think it's a big story. I've done a lot of research, and so have a lot of your fellow viewers, members of this channel that have spent hours researching this story. And I'm going to explain the whole thing to you guys slowly and methodically, so be patient with me. I'm using media that I have not used before, sharing screens and all that stuff. This is the first time, so please be patient. I want to first of all, start by thanking the moderators. Are you Jellen? Welcome back from vacation. Hell has no fury. Thank you so much for being here. Are you Jellen? Thanks for posting the rules. Don't use any words that promote violence, racism, gender bias, victim blaming, bullying, etc. Otherwise, have fun. So I am going to try to keep an eye on the chat. I can't promise anything, but if we have time at the end, I'll go back and look for questions. I'll be looking for them by myself. So if you really do have a question or a comment that you definitely want me to see, please put it question or comment at the beginning of it so that it's easy for me to see. Also, guys, when this is all over, when the story is done, the way I have approached it is I am doing an investigative piece. I'm going to give you facts that are available to the public. Some of them take a lot of digging, but they're available to the public. So that means you will make your own conclusions. Everything in all of the information that I'm going to tell you about tonight is going to be available to the public. Probably not tonight, but by tomorrow, I'll have all of the many links up that are resources for the research, and a lot of it you'll see tonight. You'll see here tonight. Hopefully, if all goes well with the technology, everybody say a little prayer for that. Hi from Kansas, Una the Great. Michelle, thank you for being here. You guys are all greatly appreciated. Hi, Kimberly. Haven't seen you in a little bit. It's been a minute. Hi, Hillary. Thanks for coming to support. Michelle, I sent you an email, but I don't think it got to you today. So if it did, ignore it. It's not important. We'll deal with it later. So recognize, you guys, this story is going to take some concentration, and it's going to take some processing, brain processing. I don't think it'll be too difficult, but it's a bit of a tangled web. For a while, I was thinking I would have a board with strings connected to all the players so that you could see how pervasive Scientology is in this story. Yay, nothing but love. I haven't seen you in so long. Forgive me if I have to drink, you guys. I'm going to be doing a lot of talking tonight, and it's, you know how I get so thirsty. So if you hear whining, it's Monty because he's all riled up. He just ate dinner and he wants to play. Just try to ignore it. Do your best. And all right, so we're going to get started. I'm going to tell you guys a story tonight. We're going to start with some background to this story. And trust me when I tell you that some of this may not seem relevant right now, but we will come back around to it. And all of the characters we're talking about here in the beginning are going to be characters that are involved later on in the story. So here's the story. It started with me going to Lakeview at the Chicago Org's old location at a long way away, but still in Chicago from where the so-called Ideal Org is now, which is at 650 South Clark Street in Chicago. While I was still in Lakeview and before I was able to go live, I was uploading videos that I took mostly of Trash doing his thing. to watch his back. But there were a couple of interviews that were kind of interesting that got me to thinking. And because I think I was interviewing people on the street, I started getting emails from a contact that I don't know. This contact is someone, I have no idea who the person is. I don't know if they're male or female. I don't know what their connection exactly is with the company that we're going to talk about tonight. But she provided me with a lot of information that was very enlightening. And she asked me to please do an expose on this company and talk about what she saw as the abuse of the use of references to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and more importantly, the principles behind it. And I think you'll understand what she means once we get. I call her she because she's a she in my mind. I honestly have no idea who this person is. They never disclose their identity to me or their gender. So I don't even know how involved they were in all of this. But they did have inside information, at least a lot of research done on the subject, and had a very strong belief that something had to be done about this situation. So that was just her opinion. I'm not representing that as fact. I'm representing that as my contact's opinion. And that was her plea to me before I even ever started live streaming. So welcome, everybody. Super Pup, Hillary Murphy, there you are, you devil. I'm so glad that all my my mods showed up. They're going to be real strict tonight. And so let's get started with the story. So yeah, it starts with my contact. And I had never heard of the organization she talked about. But when I started looking into it, let's start at the beginning, okay? I'm going to introduce you to, let's see. I think we'll go to Forbes first. Something that probably a lot of you have already seen in the press. So this is something that was widely reported about, and it is Sam Bankman-Fried and the crypto company that went defunct. So yeah, let me see if I can get this up here so that you can see it for yourself. Okay, let's see. Forbes, where's Forbes? Oh my God. Oh, I just closed it. How about that? Okay, so we'll. Oh my God. Okay, I already messed it up. I'm sorry, you guys. It's not funny. Okay. So what we're talking about, can you guys see this? Yes. Good. All right. So this is about XTC, the company the cryptocurrency company. It was a cryptocurrency exchange, and it was run by a young kid, and it's FTX. Did I say FTC? It's FTX. And the company went from FTX was like it was a cryptocurrency exchange, and it went from $0 to $32 billion in assets, or in stated capital value, in a period of 3 years. And they were like the darlings of the financial world, right? And during the time, and it was the essential thing that happened with it was that they gave a lot of money to politicians, some hundreds of thousands of dollars and some millions of dollars, and essentially in exchange, a number of the people that they contributed to wrote a group letter. These are congressmen that wrote a group letter to the SEC. And this is Tom Emmer from Minnesota's own press release. I hope you guys can see it. Tell me if you cannot see this. Is it big enough for you guys? So basically what it's saying is that that they had written a letter to the SEC saying, stop investigating FTC and other cryptocurrency companies because there's too much oversight. The SEC is imposing too much oversight on these on this new exchange, and they're stunting this amazing potential for market growth in the United States by investigating FTX. And I think, as everyone knows, FTX went under. And this Republican, it doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, because all of them were given campaign contributions by FTX. But two characters that we're going to hear about later. One is the representative. I just showed you his own website announcing that they had written, we're very proud of the fact that they had written a letter that a lot of articles described as cooling or chilling the investigation the SEC was doing into FTX. And ultimately what happened was FTX collapsed. It was badly undercapitalized. Its assets had been exaggerated tremendously. A lot of investors, venture capitalists, lost their life savings. Millions and millions of dollars were lost when FTX collapsed, and that didn't look so hot for the two particular Congress people that we're going to talk about tonight, after they had discouraged the SEC from investigating. And the outcome of that was that FTX folded and everyone lost all of their investments. So this was a big story. It was I just accidentally closed the Forbes article, but I wasn't really going to read from it. I just wanted to show you that the mainstream media went crazy about this story. So most of you probably know about it, right? So what happened was ultimately the SEC has filed charges against all of the main players, including Sam Bankman-Fried and a few of the other big movers and shakers in the exchange. And Tom Emmer from Minnesota, the Republican, and Representative Donald, a Republican from Florida, both signers of this bill chastising the SEC for beginning to investigate cryptocurrency exchanges, had a lot of egg on their face. And in fact, the mainstream media came down hard on them for that stance. Now, we go from this kerfluffle about about FTX to another piece of legislation. Okay, and this is a piece of legislation called the Main Street Growth Act. That's what it's called now. It's been pending and introduced into Congress in various iterations and titles since 2015. It is now called HR 6623. It's in committee, I believe, still. In the House of Representatives, it has to pass the House of Representatives and then, of course, pass in Congress. But guess who the sponsors are of this Main Street Growth Act? The sponsors are Tom Emmer from Minnesota and Representative Donald from Florida. Now, the Main Street Growth Act, there's a lot of information online about it. Again, everything I'm telling you tonight is a matter of public record. You can find all of it, and I will put all of the links to this information below in the description, probably tomorrow morning. So HR 6623 has the following sponsors. So it's Tom Emmer, don't forget that name, the Republican from Minnesota, Representative Donald, the Republican from Florida, Representative Fitzgerald, the Republican from Wisconsin, and Representative Panetta, a Democrat from California. Those are the sponsors of this legislation. So the Main Street Growth Act seeks to create venture exchanges, privately owned venture exchanges, similar to the private platform that FTX had for cryptocurrency exchange. But this would be venture exchange and stock exchange. So people would be able to invest venture capital, and people would be able to invest in buying companies through stock. And they would be able to buy stock and trade stock in this exchange. So why do we need another exchange, you ask? We have NASDAQ, we have New York Stock Exchange. Why do we need another exchange? I don't know that we do, but the argument in favor of it is that small and mid-cap companies would be able to have access to publicly traded ventures and stocks where they would not qualify for NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange trading. So I hope that makes sense. Typically, for the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, you're talking about companies with market capitalization in excess of $5 billion. So these are large companies. Small cap companies are considered to be anywhere from $250 million to $2 billion in market capitalization. So these are smaller, these are companies with smaller, they're worth less money, right? Smaller market capitalization, okay? And the mid-cap companies are $1 billion to $5 billion. So also considered small, but we're talking about a lot of money. The idea is that in a privately owned exchange like this, smaller companies, still privately held companies, closely held companies that have not released stock, they have not had an IPO yet. So they're looking for venture capitalists. They're looking for the initial seed money to get off the ground. And they would be able to look for that in the venture exchange. And then, of course, those companies that have already gone through an IPO is an initial public offering. That's when a company first releases its stock, a certain number of stock for sale. So they're selling part of their company to the public in this case. And the idea is that there are these hedge funds or maybe smaller groups of people, larger groups of people, smaller amounts of money to contribute to buying parts of these companies, either investing in something new that has not released any stock yet, or investing in something that is smaller, that has released stock. This way, smaller companies have an opportunity to get growth that they may not have access to otherwise. One of the problems, by the way, with FTX, even though they qualified, if it had been a simple market capital company, it would have qualified for NASDAQ by its third year. But because it's cryptocurrency, it was a whole different ballgame. So it's not an apples and apples exactly comparison, but it's close enough for our purposes, okay? So now, what happens with this Main Street Growth Act, if it's passed, is that companies like the company we're going to talk about tonight will be able to create these privately owned exchange and venture exchanges and stock exchanges. Now, the people who are in favor of this say it gives smaller companies opportunities to get the capitalization they need to realize their potential, their market potential. The arguments against it are that it is what's called lightly regulated, and that means that this act, which I will show you, is here. Let me show you this. This act will have less stringent reporting requirements. Will have again smaller market capitalization, and just overall more lenient oversight by the SEC. Some people think that's a good thing, and some people, like the ones that invested in FTC, think that's a bad thing. So I'll leave you to make up your mind about that. There's all kinds of information out there talking about these things. Canada, interestingly, has had what they call TSX. It's a venture exchange like this, privately owned since 1999. And it's a Canadian venture exchange that, again, has is lightly regulated, and they've had success stories and failures, as you can imagine. Let's see what, again, let's look at what Representative Emmer has to say about reintroducing this legislation and what he thinks it will accomplish. Can you guys see that? Everyone, can you read it? Hold on a second. Let me scroll down so you could actually see the thing. Okay, so what they're saying is, it's critical that our capital market structure meets the needs of American companies regardless of size or type. This legislation will make it easier for thousands of small and emerging growth companies, including over 100 in Minnesota, to go public, generating millions of jobs and trillions of dollars in revenue for the economy. I look forward to both sides of the aisle coming together to ensure that American entrepreneurs and workers can continue to succeed. And he goes on to say why it is he thinks this is a great idea. So this is obviously this is one of the sponsoring congressmen, so he's very much in favor of this. And now I'm going to introduce you to a company. It's a kind of a Chicago, a little bit of a Clearwater company for a variety of reasons that we probably won't discuss in detail tonight, just because it requires a lot of discussion. And I do plan on doing a lot more research and reporting on this topic. So we'll go into that probably more later. The name of the company is Dream Exchange Marketing LLC. Okay, Dream Exchange. This is a company that has two main partners. One of the names might be familiar to you, but let's start with the other one. Actually, this may be familiar to you too. So the two main partners are Joseph J. Sakala, and Dwain Kyles. Okay. Dwain Kyles is a Georgetown trained attorney. You know, very, very intelligent guy. His title is, and I will show you the staff of the Dream Exchange, but his title is let's see, hold on a sec. He is checking my notes. Be patient. Managing member of DX Capital Partners. So Dwain J. Kyles is the managing member of DX Capital Partners and now a partner of Joseph Sakala's. And they are going to be owning and operating Dream Exchange. The reason it's called Dream Exchange is, as you may have guessed, it's a riff on Martin Luther King having a dream. The reason I know that is because they have a big website full of all kinds of information about them. And what they're saying is that this would be the first minority-owned private exchange in the history of the United States. The first minority-owned and operated, privately owned venture and stock exchange platform in the United States of America. And they're really pushing this idea that it is minority forward, or diversity, in favor of diversity, and encouraging diversity in their membership once the statute passes, if it does. What they're doing right now is they're putting on webinars about how this thing will work. There's not a whole lot of information. They do a lot of screening as far as who they give specific information to on the website. But if you're interested, there's a form where it says that you can write to them, fill out the form, and get information about what they mean by membership, what it takes to be a member, and what they're doing in their webinars. And I would be very, very interested to get that information. I just don't feel like they give it to me for some reason. I think it's the color of my hair, but who knows? Anyway, Dwain J. Kyles, that name might sound familiar if you're from Chicago. Why? Because Dwain Kyles was a part owner of a club called E2 Nightclub in Chicago in 2003. So let me share this with you. This is an article about this particular nightclub and a terrible thing that happened there years ago. And it's from ABC7, which is our local, ABC channel. And I will be able to, we'll just read a little part of it so we can see what happened in that situation. So I'll give you some of the background. So basically this was a, excuse me, this was a nightclub that
with people with disabilities. Michelle Gallardo with details of.
Wait a second, that's the wrong article. Sorry, they switched it. They switched it on me. Hold on a sec. I have to go back. So E2 was I'm just going to tell you about this, I think, because we're already a half hour into the story. E2 was a nightclub where there was a fight that broke out. The nightclub had insufficient evacuation areas. We know what fans the Scientology is of that from our experience with them at their grand opening on March 3rd in Chicago. And this Dwayne Kyles was a co-owner of E2 nightclub, which hang on a second, and I have to stop sharing this. Hold on. Okay. And Dwayne Kyles and his partner, ultimately what happened was there was a stampede. People were trying to get out because security guards had pepper sprayed these people that got into a fight. And if you've ever been in close proximity of pepper spray, it's miserable. It's awful. It burns. It chokes you. It's hard to breathe. And when you're in a closed space, the only thing you can think of is to get out. And they had closed the bottom floor. They were having this event on the top floor, and there was only one exit that was partially blocked off. And it was overcrowded. So when everyone tried to rush out, they stampeded 21 people to death. So 21 people died in this incident in 2003. And Dwayne Kyles and his business partner at the time were convicted of 21 counts of involuntary manslaughter because of the conduct of their hired security and because of the lack of escape. So 21 people lost their lives. These guys were convicted. It went up on appeal and was sent back to the trial court on a technicality. And instead of trying them all over again, the prosecutor, which was a Chicago city attorney, and their attorney agreed that they would do a couple of years of probation for these 21 deaths and some 500 hours of community service with Dwayne did it with the homeless, and his friend who had served an earlier murder conviction in prison and was going to do prison rehab with helping prisoners get back on their feet. So Dwayne Kyles is Joseph Sakala's partner in this company from Chicago, the Dream Exchange. Joseph Sakala, I've heard that name before. And not only have I heard that name before, I've seen that person before because he happens to be coming and going in the Chicago Scientology org every single time almost that I'm auditing there. So the funny thing is too, when I first looked at their website and I looked at all of their the main players, right, that are their what are they called? They call them their leadership team. So basically their employees. I recognized quite a few of them from going in and out of the org. And Joe Sakala's name was familiar because I remembered at the Ideal Org opening in Chicago of the cult, David Miscavige mentioned Joe Sakala Jr. and family by name when he was thanking the most dedicated of the parishioners in terms of financial support for getting the Ideal Org in shape. So in other words, Joe Sakala is a whale for Scientology. And not only is he a whale for Scientology, he's someone that has been in Scientology for over 15 years. So looking at comparing the characters involved and looking at some of these course completion websites, I looked at 3 different ones. Another researcher looked at least one, probably more. And I found that Joe Sakala has done the Superpower Rundown, the Havingness Rundown, the Profession Intensive, PTSSP, rundown. That's to teach those people to deal with people like us. And not only that, but all of his relatives' names, a lot of relatives. I'm talking about 7 or 8 people, all Sakalas and all children, wives, wives of children are all Scientology members. This family is a very entrenched member, a family of Scientology members. Okay. So Joe Sakala was also instrumental in writing the legislation that these sponsors are trying to get through Congress right now. So the legislation is written for Joe Sakala and Dwain Kyles of E2, of the E2 disaster. Now, Joe Sakala's title with Dream Exchange is founder and CEO. He was there at the opening of the Ideal Org when David Miscavige himself, the cult leader, thanked the family, thanked Joe, and thanked his family for their contributions, to their financial contributions to allowing the building, the cult building in Chicago, to be open and to, create the fiasco that they did on March 3rd. So here's the Dream Exchange team as it appears in many different, I don't know, many different, some public, some mainstream media publications, and other places. So Joe Sakala's in the upper left. Dwain Kyles is on the right. Let me scroll down a little bit. Hang on. Thanks for being patient with this media, guys. It's all new to me. Down here is a Moxon of the Kendrick Moxon crew in Clearwater. And his last address, Brian Moxon's last address, was in Clearwater, Florida. Kendrick Moxon is a well-known OT8, I believe. Michelle, tell me if I'm mistaken. And when we counted all of these characters at Dream Exchange, what we found is that, now I might have this number wrong because I forgot to write it down. So Michelle, you're going to have to tell me. I think it's 17 out of 20. 17 out of the 20 leadership team and staff members are Scientologists, entrenched Scientologists. And when I received a copy of their prospectus from my contact who sent it to me, and I read it, I don't know whether that's public information or not, so I'm not going to publish it yet until I find out. But he's clear. That's right. That's right. Joe Sakala is also clear. But buried deep within the prospectus, it says that they use Hubbard Executive Technologies for staff training purposes. What I was told by my contact, and I quote, is that she or he was recruited at one time or knew someone that was recruited and worked there for a short period of time and ran off in horror when she found out that not only are whatever Hubbard Executive Technologies are, we'll do another show on that, included the kinds of yelling and cursing and, things like that we've heard from Reese and other staff members from staff and public and Sea Org members. The kind of management style that we see in Scientology, in other words, is being used at Dream Exchange, according to my source. Okay. So now we see that this is a Scientology primarily a Scientology owned and operated company. We know they're in business. We know they have staff because we've seen it on their website. A lot of detail about all that. You can sign up now for their webinars. They're not, letting any moss grow under their feet. And yeah, they're in operation. The last thing is, we were unable to identify an office out of which this company operates. We found a registered agent that was Joe Sakala, and then it was changed to a company in Clearwater called, was it in Clearwater or Park Ridge? I think it was here. That is called Registered Agents Incorporated. So that's an effort to, have a registered agent that isn't known by the public to be one of the executives, the CEO of the company. But we were unable to find an office that they work out of. The addresses that were listed, one was a P.O. box in a post office. One was a defunct undeveloped lot. The other was a house, a little house that was not an office building at all. Now, I see these people coming and going dressed in suits all the time at 650 South Clark. We know that that's a 7-story building. We know that they've got their weird library and / movie viewing area on the first floor. We know that they have kids in the basement. That information I got from someone who had been in the building and saw the kids in the basement, and I have that on film, on a live. There's a theater on the 2nd or 3rd floor. There are offices, and who is using those offices, I don't know yet, but I'm hoping to find out. All I know is I see Dream Exchange personnel going in and out of the 650 South Clark Street building regularly, at least weekly. Okay? That's how I knew these people when I saw them. Now, let's add to all of this that there are, Sakala member families that are executives and staff members at the Chicago Ideal Org. So Joey, who I think is the third, because Joe Sakala Jr. he is a lawyer and a CPA, and he's the dad that helped draft the legislation, and this is his brainchild. Dwain Kyles was recruited for his brains, I'm sure. He's from Georgetown, a very difficult law school to get into and to succeed in. And also because he's the representative, he's one of other representatives of minorities that are holding down the diversity forward image that they're using as a marketing tool. And it can be a successful marketing tool. A lot of the companies that may want to use, want to be members of the venture and stock exchanges can fulfill their diversity requirements by using these kinds of platforms. So there is advantage to it, but for me, overall, it's a red herring. It's a marketing tool. This is not about doing business with African-American people. This is about creating your very own private exchange for the benefit of your own very own private capital venture company that's owned by your partner. And this is just my opinion based on, I would say, my opinion based on common sense when you put all these puzzle pieces together. So finally, let's see, and let me check my notes and make sure I didn't forget anything. I want to show you, let's see, what's this? Okay, so there is in my community page, I couldn't find that same photo again. The photo, somebody gave it to me, but I can't remember who. But the photo is of all of the Scientology members that the Scientology staff members, and it includes Joe Sakala Jr., the father's son, Joey, and his wife, who goes by Sakala. They're the ones who I think are going to be renewing their wedding vows up here coming up soon, and also there's another Sakala brother that is on staff at the Ideal Org. So this really does make them the whales and the controllers of the Ideal Org in Chicago. Okay, so let me just read you something that I thought was pretty interesting. This comes from the Dream Exchange marketing that's on their website. And it's so Scientology style that I had to read to you. This is from part of their mission statement. And it says, our listing platform, the exchanges, right, will align with our company's goals to help formation for companies with products that increase our ability to do what? To survive and flourish on our planet. If that's not a Scientology mission statement, I don't know what is. Finally, I'm going to show you a picture from the Chicago opening on March 3rd. If you guys saw my live, you know that it was surrounded by protesters, including myself, that were continually told by Scientologists where they could and could not go in public spaces, and that the First District Police Department in Chicago was also told by Scientology in Chicago where we could and could not go. And the police department followed their direction to a T. And I can tell you that because I saw it with my own eyes for 3 days straight. So for some reason, David Miscavige had to close down that block, that very busy urban block that's full of foot traffic and car traffic for 3 days so that he could speak for 10 minutes. And in his speech on LRH's birthday, he included the same clip that thanks the Sakala family for their generous donations in refurbishing the Chicago Ideal Org that opened March 3rd. And here is a photograph of that event. And it is full of, this is from Tony Ortega's website. I mean, what is it called? Something stock, Substack. And there are very familiar faces in here, guys. If you look to the left, behind this very neatly coiffed character in his Italian suit, who's a full head smaller or lower than everyone else, directly over his right shoulder here is Joey Sakala. And right here over his left shoulder is Joey's brother. Mama Sakala is here. I don't recall her name, in white. And then behind her, barely visible, is Daddy Sakala, Dream Exchange's CEO. Can you guys see that? So I'm not going to tell you guys, what I've uncovered. I think it's obvious, or it should be obvious. Maybe after you've had some process time, it will come clear to you. It's a very complete puzzle. There are even more rabbit holes to go down to look into. For example, I'm looking for a friend of a friend who specializes in SEC litigation. And I would like to go over in detail what this piece of legislation would actually change as with the SEC's power to regulate the Main Street Growth Exchange. Because I think it's important that we know that. This is why I've got my ticker today that says, to find your senators and reps by zip code, look up that website, okay? Because if you have strong feelings about this, I'll keep my opinions to myself as much as I can, knowing that I'm not a fan of Scientology, and that I audit them. I do First Amendment auditing at Scientology at least weekly, once weekly. But you can draw your own conclusions. The real problem, as the critics see it, is the increased risk, the light regulatory oversight, as the proponents call it. But it's really risk to people with less money than the people who invest in the stock exchange, in the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. And it's groups of people with less money coming up with venture capital in the venture exchange. So the real problem is that, is not that, that the real issue is that we're not stimulating these underserved companies. We're allowing less regulated, less companies with less market capital to go into a public arena. Public meaning it's access to public investors, and it's privately owned by a Scientology dominated company, and where the profits that will be extreme if this legislation is passed. This will be an extremely lucrative endeavor. Where those profits will end up, we really don't know. And of course, like the very strange marriage between the Nation of Islam and Scientology, being diversity forward is kind of a joke, given what Scientology has been like historically. So we need to look at all aspects of this and ask ourselves, what can we do to, what do we want to do about this, right? And so we can talk about it more. We have that was almost an hour. I'm so proud that I was able to do this. Again, apologies for the sound, but man, do I feel better that this is over with. Again, if I disappear, someone take care of my dog, and look for the connection with Kyle's and Scientology. That's all I'll say about that. And also, thanks, Hillary. I hope it made sense. We did a little dry run without any of the photos and articles with the membership last night, and there wasn't crickets is probably the best way to describe the response, because it's a puzzle, and but a puzzle that becomes a very clear and threatening, in my view, picture. That's my view only, and all of the information I used to draw any conclusions that I've drawn are public record, and I encourage all of you, once I get these links up, to look into it for yourself. It's important, and this is one thing we can do from home, and that might really, really make a difference in protecting the more average among us financially. So I'm going to ask my mods if they've seen any questions. If there are any questions, we've got just a couple of minutes, and I'm happy to Oh, I'm so glad it made sense. Thank you. Hell has no fury. I'm glad it made sense. I figured if I took my time, people would understand. So, thanks. I know you guys aren't dumb. I'm not that smart, and it took me a while to put all this stuff together. It took all of us a while. We have Facebook pictures of this family. We have oodles of information about this family, and we will share it. I will share it with you. I couldn't talk anybody else to getting on the screen with me, but that's okay. I've already shown my face, so what else could happen, right? Um, but yeah, if you can't think of anything, you don't have any questions or comments you really want to see now, then just leave them in the comments, and I will use them to direct the follow-up that I do on these. We'll do whatever seems interesting. I'll do, and if you find it interesting, you'll tune in. Okay, so lastly, I want to say a couple things. Tomorrow, I'm going to, I think, do an interview with Dodge, but I'm not positive about that yet. I will let you guys know in plenty of time, sometime in the afternoon. But don't forget, Friday is Lou, and this time we're talking about his specialty in auditing, more auditing as a child, and his escape, which is going to be really, really exciting. And that informs our, I don't know, it informs my convictions, I guess. It informs my belief in what we're doing here. So do tune into Lou and to Dodge, who stays up late at night. So I'll be very tired, but we'll have to do it a little later than what I'm used to. Thank you guys so much. Any questions? Safe Point politicians for a reason. We know COS is sneaky. Yes. So in Chicago, I will say that it is the governing of Chicago, not Illinois, but of Chicago, is minority dominated. So it does provide, if they were looking for government contracts or that government investments of some kind, that would actually be very beneficial for them. It's just something that's popular here, and it's probably popular in like places like New York. Yeah, and diversity, they're talking about Black owned companies being members and taking advantage. I don't think that the membership is limited to Black owned companies. I did not see that anywhere in their marketing message. So I think they're assuming because they're smaller companies, they may be minority owned. I don't know. But Dream Exchange, they're calling minority owned and operated. There was a man named Bruce Trask. If anyone can track this dude down, he was with Dream Exchange. They claim that some of their staff has been with them for 6 years already. So they are making money and they are doing things. And the money from the Sakalas obviously is being donated to build buildings in Chicago for Scientology. So they are doing things, and they have had staff for this, they're claiming 6 years, which means that, they're making money and paying wages, paying salaries. Also, being minority forward is just not Scientology's thing. They keep saying it is because they're in Chicago. And like I said, it can be a politically popular marketing tool. But other than that, it's a red herring, in my view. That's just my opinion. You guys make up your own minds, okay? Hillary, it's just, let's see. I can put this up. It's just how they are marketing this scam business, actually taking advantage of minorities from the retail public to invest. That's right. So they're looking for a retail investment market, and they're taking advantage of the minority population here. Also, I want to thank you guys that helped me with all this research once more. Hillary knows a lot about this topic, and thank you so much for helping me with this. Sweet Kimberly question. Kimberly Sweet, are you sweet, Kimberly? I bet you are. Okay, let's see, where's your question? I'm a-looking. They don't make it easy to scroll in this chat on here. Okay, is there someone we should be contacting in the House or Senate about this? Yes. So those people, remember we have Minnesota, Florida, California, and what was the fourth one? Minnesota, Florida, Wisconsin, and California. If you live in any of those states, you definitely want to get in touch with the sponsors. Also, no matter where you live, get in touch with your representatives right now, because it's in the House of Representatives in committee, I believe. Last I checked, which was yesterday. So I'm thinking it's still in committee. But they're all going to have to vote on it. And it got through the House and to the Senate once and got kicked back out of the Senate. So it has been submitted as a bill in at least four different iterations. The most recent is called Main Street Growth Act, and they have tweaked it according to whatever objections there were in Congress or in committee or whatever. So they're really committed to getting this thing done. All of their PR says it was going to be done. It was going to be done the first quarter of 2023, and that they would be in full operation by the second quarter of 2023. So we see how that's gone. But he did if you look at Forbes Live, Joe Cicala, the CEO, did a live interview with Forbes magazine where he, it was too long for me to be able to share it on here. So that's unfortunate, but he talked a lot of Scientology in that interview. And that was in 2022. And he said they were 18 months out of being fully operational. So they've been basically saying, it's kind of like the way they treated the 650 South Park building. For 20 years, almost 20 years they had it. And they said year after year after year, they were having the grand opening. And they only did it finally this year, right? Whatever it was, 20 years later. So, Michael, Dodge is dealing with a kerfuffle resulting from his interview with Mitch Brisker. I did get a text about that from Dodge. Dodge is the first person to admit when he's wrong. So if all he said to me was that it was on Nora's channel, that she had very good points. Dodge is just a really humble person. So I don't know what the kerfuffle is. I'm afraid to find out, but I'm sure it'll work itself out. I'm optimistic about these things. So Hell Has No Fury says, contact your reps and let them know you want nothing to do with it. Senator Warren is usually on top of this kind of finance issue. Yeah. Okay. Am I missing any other questions, guys, or comments? And this is I agree with this completely. I mean, that's how that kid got. There's a breakdown in an article that I will link in the description of exactly how much money was given to Tom Emmer and Representative Donalds, the two sponsors of the Main Street Act, but by exactly how much money in campaign contributions they got to chill the investigation into FTX. So yeah, we'll go into that probably in a later date, because the amount is staggering. They were given money by the other company that was owned by the same people that owned the exchange itself. Does this sound familiar at all, guys? And the other company failed as well, and they were given money by the political action committees for both the platform and the company, and they were given individual donations by a number of the executives at the platform and the company. So yeah, individual and whopping, we're talking millions of dollars in campaign contributions. And they did not only give money to Republicans, they gave a lot of money to Democrats too. So whoever happened to be in power at the time is who they were paying to chill the SEC regulatory stuff over the cryptocurrency exchange. So, yep, I happen to agree with money out of politics, 100%. Hillary Murphy, Michael Andreas, Michelle and Reese, thank you so much for everything you did to help here. I hope you don't mind me talking about that. Don't worry, they don't know who you are. I know. It is a landmine, right? Dodge is a good guy, I can tell you. He was a good guy at that. He really was. He not only did he stick it out to the bitter end of the opening on the 3rd, but he absolutely had my back the whole time. And I was really suffering physically by the end of every day. And he was just really taking care of me, watching out for me, sticking by my side for the most part, when I was getting threatened with arrest. And so were other people too, not just Dodge. But you can't help it when you go through something like that with someone. You're loyal, and I'm loyal to him. I have respect for him. Yeah, FTX was a big deal. There are a lot of you, I'm sure, know about that. And the Silicon Valley Bank. Yeah, FTX was here's what happens this is a good example of what happens with light regulation, right, guys? With lax regulation, they start funding companies with bank loans. This is not something that's done on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. It's not allowed. You don't borrow for capital, monetization. You don't do that. So, okay, I'm done. If you all are done, then we can go have a drink or whatever we do, relax, a cup of tea, and a walk with the dog. Both companies collapsed. And everyone that invested a lot of people lost their life savings, all of their retirement, everything they had in the world in that debacle. Hillary says many groups have spoken out against this bill because of the lack of regulation and protection. That's part of why this is such a big story. I'm sort of shocked that this has not been covered by mainstream press. And it's shocking to me too that it's me, and I'm in a room with only 22 people, and I've got the receipts, and I don't know. It's just amazing to me that people don't care more about this stuff, right? Just because they're not here doesn't mean they don't care, but damn, I really wish we put a lot of work into it, didn't we, guys? Thank you, mods. I love you. Thank you, my research brothers and sisters. And thanks to all the people that sat through this and took the time and made the effort to understand it. Think a little bit about it. If anybody has comments, again, add it. And I'll see you guys I'll see my members tomorrow morning for the walk with the dogs. Yes, please share the video so that this news gets out to people. This affects our entire country and the future of the free market system in our country. That is not an exaggeration, okay? So this is really important stuff. Share the video and make sure that you guys, even if you're members, put on the notification that will ring the bell. Hopefully, it'll give you guys news that I'm coming on, so that when we speak more about the situation, believe me, every time you look into this, it gets worse and worse and dirtier and worse, and we're going to continue to look into it. You're very welcome, Are You Jellian? Thank you for everything you've done for us. Pause. It's always good to see you, and I also like to read your comments. So, highly sus to say the least. Obviously, it's way worse than that. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. You explained it very well. Well, thank you. I was very, very nervous about this, but I figured Rabbit does a good job at this. If I took my time, I'd be okay. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Rabbit holes. Yeah, we'll follow up. Don't worry. Share. Please share this video and turn on your notification so that when we go on about this, I'll see you guys members tomorrow morning for dog walks. Everybody tomorrow night for Dodge. I'm sure he'll have things to say about his kerfluffle. He does not back away from conflict. Not conflict, that's not what I mean. He doesn't back away from things that are sticky, things that other people will not talk about. And he doesn't back away from talking to people that other people won't even mention, which I respect. I think there's something to learn from everyone. And I will literally listen to anybody that can arm me against Scientology and cults. So we'll see you guys Friday for Lou too. We have a lot of fun stuff coming up, so please come back. Thanks everyone. Thanks again. Have a great night. Bye.